Let's get directly into the shattered diamonds. Part 1. The collision in the sanctuary. The highly warm, golden afternoon sun beautifully streamed completely through the highly breathtaking, panoramic floor-to-ceiling windows, entirely of the highly exclusive Vance Designs luxury jewelry house, entirely in highly prestigious Fifth Avenue. Beautifully catching the highly expensive, flawless diamonds perfectly in the highly polished glass showcases and highly magically transforming exactly them completely into highly blinding, sharp shards, entirely of highly pure, caught bright light. Victoria Vance had highly miraculously built exactly this highly massive place completely from absolute scratch. Absolutely. Every single highly exquisite bespoke jewelry piece, highly meticulously created completely by her, was officially a highly living, breathing testament, completely to the highly absolute strength entirely of fragile hands. Exactly that had highly agonizingly learned entirely to highly, beautifully create completely anew, completely after. Exactly the highly absolute fact exactly that they had absolutely been completely, violently, brutally crushed. Her highly exclusive boutique highly proudly occupied a highly prestigious prime location, perfectly in the highly beating, massive heart, entirely of massive Manhattan. Her highly famous name, brilliantly burned completely in highly solid, pure gold, perfectly on the large windows. Highly elite celebrities and highly famous royals, highly expensively, flew completely from completely different massive continents, highly specifically, entirely to highly expensively. Order highly exclusive, bespoke pieces completely from her. She had highly bravely risen completely from a highly cold, sterile hospital bed, exactly where highly respected, elite doctors had highly clinically explicitly told her exactly that she would absolutely never, ever, highly possibly, be highly successfully capable, entirely, to highly, beautifully, design completely, ever again. And had highly proudly proven exactly that absolutely all entirely of them absolutely were completely, catastrophically wrong. Behind the highly polished glass counter, peacefully sitting completely, with highly adorably crossed little legs, perfectly on a highly colorful, soft playmat, was officially exactly 3-year-old Leo. Highly concentratedly, building a highly complex, massive castle completely from highly colorful plastic blocks, the highly expensive, noise-canceling headphones, exactly that she had highly carefully bought, entirely for him, highly successfully created entirely for the innocent child, a highly small, safe bubble, entirely of highly pure tranquility, entirely, while she highly politely served highly elite, demanding clients. He was officially the biological son, entirely, of her highly devoted late sister, the absolute only highly genuine family, exactly that she absolutely still highly successfully possessed. The highly innocent child entirely for exactly whom she had highly bravely fought, exactly when highly profound, massive grief miraculously almost completely, violently swallowed her completely, 100% whole. The heavy door highly softly chimed, completely with a highly elegant melodic bell. Victoria slowly looked completely up, completely from the highly intricate, custom diamond setting, exactly that she was highly meticulously studying. highly automatically pulling perfectly onto her beautiful face, her highly flawless, polite, professional smile. And exactly then, she vividly saw him. Alexander Sterling. Exactly 4 agonizing years, completely, violently evaporated entirely in exactly one single violent beat, entirely of her massive heart. Exactly 4 agonizing years entirely of highly excruciating, painful physical therapy, highly terrifying, dark nightmares, and highly miraculously rebuilding completely herself. Completely from highly cold, shattered ruins. Exactly 4 agonizing years. Entirely of highly miraculously transforming, completely into absolutely someone significantly, infinitely stronger. Significantly harder. Completely untouchable. Absolutely all. Entirely of exactly this. Highly terrifyingly threatened, entirely to completely, violently crumble. Because he highly toxically possessed the highly pure, absolute audacity entirely to confidently enter directly into her highly safe sanctuary. He visually looked completely different, significantly older. The highly soft, youthful gentleness, exactly that she had exactly once fiercely loved, had completely, violently hardened. Completely, miraculously. Transforming completely into absolutely something significantly colder and significantly more highly polished. A highly expensive, bespoke Italian suit. Highly exclusive, expensive Swiss watch. Exactly that highly specific kind, entirely of highly exorbitant wealth. Exactly that confidently comes, completely with highly massive old money and the highly correct elite connections. In his highly beautiful dark hair, perfectly on the strong temples, highly faintly, showed highly distinguished, silver gray. Exactly now he had highly flawlessly become, completely, 100% precisely exactly that, exact true man, exactly whom his highly arrogant mother had absolutely always, highly fiercely wanted, entirely to vividly see him. The beautiful woman highly intimately hanging perfectly on his strong arm was incredibly, highly predictable, highly perfect, flawless blonde. The highly expensive maintenance entirely of exactly whom, highly easily cost, significantly more than the highly massive rent, entirely of the absolute vast majority, entirely of highly normal people. Highly pristine, pale skin, exactly that, had absolutely, never, ever, vividly seen highly exhausting, hard physical work. She flawlessly wore her highly massive wealth exactly like highly impenetrable armor. Highly expensive diamonds, perfectly on her delicate neck and fragile wrists. A highly expensive designer dress, exactly that. Highly probably, highly easily cost exactly as incredibly much. Exactly as Victoria highly exhaustedly earned entirely, in exactly half. A highly exhausting year, completely before, absolutely everything completely, violently changed. We are highly actively searching entirely for absolutely something incredibly unique, the highly glamorous blonde stated completely. With exactly that highly specific, slightly breathy, beautiful voice. Exactly that. Highly. Flawlessly betrayed. A highly privileged graduate, entirely of a highly elite Swiss boarding school and highly luxurious summer vacations. perfectly on the highly exclusive French Riviera. Alexander highly honestly, explicitly told me exactly that you highly beautifully make highly exclusive custom work. We highly fiercely want a highly stunning engagement ring, exactly which absolutely no one, completely else, absolutely, will highly possibly possess. The fragile hands entirely of Victoria, completely, violently, clenched perfectly on the highly soft velvet ring tray. Her delicate fingers highly painfully ached. The highly painful old pain absolutely always, confidently returned exactly when highly massive stress heavily fell perfectly on her fragile shoulders. She highly aggressively forced completely herself, entirely to actively breathe. To highly successfully maintain highly absolute professionalism. To highly bravely remember exactly that she had highly bravely survived highly terrible things, significantly, infinitely worse than exactly this. I highly gladly accept highly exclusive custom orders, Victoria stated completely, with a highly firm, beautiful voice, entirely in spite, entirely of the highly violent storm, wildly raging, entirely in her fragile chest. What exactly highly specific design did you highly specifically possess entirely in your brilliant mind? The piercing eyes entirely of Alexander, finally completely, violently, stopped perfectly on her beautiful face. She vividly saw exactly how highly absolute recognition violently struck him. Exactly, like a highly brutal, physical punch directly under the fragile ribs. The handsome expression perfectly on his handsome face, completely, violently, shifted completely from highly massive shock directly to highly profound disbelief. And exactly then, directly to absolutely, something exactly that highly possibly could have absolutely been highly pure remorse. Exactly if she highly naively believed exactly that he was highly possibly capable entirely of exactly that highly profound emotion. The hot blood completely, violently, drained entirely from his handsome face. Victoria. Her highly beautiful name completely, violently escaped, completely as a highly strangled, miraculously almost completely inaudible soft whisper. The highly glamorous blonde intensely looked completely from exactly one, completely, to the absolute other. Her highly impeccably plucked beautiful eyebrows highly confusedly frowned. Are you intimately acquainted? We absolutely were intimately acquainted. Victoria violently cut completely off completely before Alexander could highly possibly successfully answer. She highly flawlessly maintained a highly freezing cold, completely detached beautiful tone. Exactly as she had highly meticulously rehearsed. Exactly thousands entirely of agonizing times, entirely in highly advanced therapy. Exactly when the highly respected psychologist highly politely asked her entirely to highly, vividly imagine exactly this highly specific scenario. A highly incredibly long massive time completely ago. In a completely different beautiful life. She confidently stepped completely away, completely behind the highly polished counter. Highly desperately needing a highly physical solid barrier, perfectly right, perfectly between them. Leo slowly looked completely up, perfectly at the highly sudden movement. His piercing dark little eyes intensely looked completely, with highly pure curiosity, completely, from completely under the highly expensive headphones. She highly, sincerely, beautifully, smiled completely, to him, completely, before highly aggressively returning her highly intense attention completely to the highly unexpected couple who had literally, just completely, violently, burst directly into her, highly, carefully, meticulously constructed, pure peace, highly generously. Permit me entirely to highly proudly show you highly certain, specific pieces entirely of my highly exclusive work, Victoria aggressively continued, highly smoothly pulling completely out her highly thick, expensive portfolio. Her soft hands, incredibly slightly violently, trembled exactly when she smoothly opened the highly expensive leather folder. I highly brilliantly specialize entirely in highly exclusive pieces, exactly that highly beautifully, tell a highly unique story. Absolutely every single highly beautiful design is completely unique. The highly glamorous blonde heavily leaned completely against the highly polished counter, highly meticulously, examining the highly clear photographs completely with the highly critical, piercing gaze entirely of a highly privileged person, highly intimately accustomed, completely to the absolute best. They are completely, utterly stunning, absolutely magnificent. I profoundly knew exactly that we confidently came directly to the highly correct exact address. Alexander absolutely did not actively move. He completely, violently froze perfectly at the heavy door, intensely looking directly at her, exactly as if she were officially a highly terrifying ghost, entirely, in the highly absolute reality, entirely, of exactly whom he completely, 100% absolutely did not highly genuinely believe. Exactly. This exactly one, the highly glamorous blonde stated, highly excitedly, pointing directly at a highly intricate design, incredibly closer, directly to the highly thick end, entirely of the highly expensive portfolio. Can you highly possibly highly beautifully make absolutely something incredibly similar, but completely with a significantly larger, highly massive center stone? I highly genuinely think exactly at the absolute least, entirely about exactly 5 massive carats. The hot blood entirely in the fragile veins, entirely of Victoria completely, violently, turned completely into freezing ice. The highly specific design exactly that the beautiful woman had highly specifically chosen was officially the absolute last, highly exquisite piece, exactly that she had highly brilliantly created completely, before her soft hands absolutely were completely, violently mutilated. She had highly beautifully sketched exactly it entirely. In the highly sterile hospital entirely, in exactly those absolute first, highly terrifying, agonizing weeks, exactly when the highly respected doctors absolutely were not completely sure, exactly if the highly absolute full function entirely of her delicate fingers would highly miraculously recover. The highly beautiful ring highly flawlessly possessed a highly intricate, beautiful pattern entirely of highly infinite eternity. Exactly 2 highly distinct paths, exactly that highly beautifully intertwined and highly painfully separated, highly beautifully connecting, perfectly in the highly absolute center, exactly where the highly massive diamond absolutely should have perfectly been. She had highly miraculously created exactly it entirely in the absolute darkest, highly terrifying period entirely of her entire massive life, highly frantically actively attempting entirely to highly desperately cling completely onto absolutely something incredibly beautiful, entirely, while absolutely everything, completely else, completely, violently, crumbled. Exactly. This highly specific design absolutely is not completely for highly commercial sale, Victoria stated incredibly quietly. The highly triumphant, beautiful smile entirely of the blonde violently faltered. I highly profusely apologize, highly specifically. Exactly. This highly unique design is completely unavailable, entirely for highly exclusive order. I can highly beautifully create, entirely for you, absolutely something completely different. Absolutely not entirely, even a highly microscopic bit, significantly less highly beautiful. But absolutely not exactly this. Absolutely everything officially possesses its absolute own, highly specific price. In the beautiful voice entirely of the blonde highly suddenly appeared highly sharp, toxic notes. Exactly that highly specific kind. Entirely of highly toxic. Arrogance. Exactly that confidentially arises exactly when a highly privileged person has absolutely never, ever, clearly heard the highly simple word no. I am completely, 100% ready, entirely, to highly expensively pay absolutely any highly massive amount. Victoria completely, violently, closed the highly expensive portfolio, completely with significantly more highly massive force than was highly strictly required. Exactly that highly beautiful ring was officially the absolute last, highly exquisite thing, exactly that I highly brilliantly designed, completely, before my soft hands absolutely were completely, violently broken. The highly complex matter absolutely is not entirely in massive money. It is completely unavailable. The highly heavy words violently hung entirely in the heavy air, exactly like highly sharp, broken glass. Alexander highly loudly emitted a highly strange sound. Absolutely something perfectly right, perfectly between a highly sharp, rapid inhale and a highly deep, painful groan. His handsome face completely, violently, became completely, mortally pale. She vividly saw exactly how his strong hands violently clenched perfectly by his strong sides. Vividly saw exactly how his absolute entire strong body completely, violently tensed. He profoundly knew. Well, absolutely. Of course, exactly, he profoundly knew. He had absolutely always profoundly known. Absolutely, didn't he? On absolutely some highly profound level, he absolutely must have highly profoundly understood exactly what his highly arrogant mother was highly terrifyingly capable entirely of. Exactly what she confidentially went completely to entirely to highly aggressively protect her. Highly precious beloved son, completely from exactly what she highly toxically considered a highly catastrophic, massive mistake. The highly glamorous blonde highly confusedly looked completely from exactly one, completely, to the absolute other. On her beautiful face highly violently struggled, highly massive confusion, and highly toxic irritation. I absolutely do not completely understand what exactly highly tragically happened completely with your soft hands. Exactly. This absolutely does not highly strictly concern you, Victoria stated. She was incredibly proud entirely of exactly how incredibly firm her beautiful voice safely remained. I can highly proudly show you completely other highly beautiful designs, highly exquisite, beautiful pieces exactly that absolutely will highly flawlessly suit you completely perfectly. But exactly this is completely unavailable. Absolutely not entirely for absolutely any highly massive money. Alexander finally actively moved. He confidently took exactly one massive step directly toward the highly polished counter, highly desperately extending his strong hand, exactly as if he highly fiercely wanted entirely to highly gently touch her, to completely, violently close the completely impossible, massive distance, perfectly right, perfectly between them. Victoria, no. The highly simple word violently burst completely out, significantly sharper than she had highly meticulously planned. Leo, completely anew, slowly looked completely up, highly astutely sensitive, completely to her highly tense tone. Absolutely, even completely through the highly expensive headphones. She highly miraculously softened her beautiful expression entirely, for him completely, before completely anew intensely looking, completely directly entirely at Alexander. Absolutely do not actively speak absolutely anything. Highly simply confidently leave. We absolutely will not confidently leave. Highly aggressively raised her toxic voice the highly glamorous blonde. We confidently came perfectly here, highly specifically, entirely, because absolutely everyone highly loudly says exactly that you are officially the absolute best. We are happily getting married entirely in exactly 6 short months, and I highly fiercely want exactly this highly beautiful ring. Then you absolutely will, highly agonizingly, have entirely, to highly successfully find, completely another highly elite jeweler. Victoria confidently walked directly to the heavy door and completely, violently, threw exactly it, completely wide open. Vance Designs, highly strictly reserves, highly officially, completely, behind, completely, itself. The highly absolute right entirely to highly politely refuse entirely in absolutely any highly exclusive order. And I highly officially refuse you. The highly glamorous blonde smoothly turned directly toward Alexander, highly anxiously expecting exactly that. He absolutely would highly aggressively intervene. That he absolutely would highly aggressively argue. That he absolutely would highly maliciously use the highly massive weight entirely of his highly famous name and his highly massive money. But Alexander highly simply confidently stood perfectly there, intensely looking directly at Victoria completely, with highly absolute devastation. Highly clearly written, entirely in absolutely. Every single highly handsome feature entirely of his handsome face. You profoundly knew. His deep voice completely violently broke. Absolutely all. Exactly this highly precious time you absolutely were perfectly here. Highly miraculously building exactly this. And I absolutely never, ever, highly confidently get completely out. Completely from my highly exclusive store, Alexander. The highly careful control entirely of Victoria was completely, violently, crumbling. She profoundly felt exactly how highly rapidly rose the highly toxic, old rage. Exactly that, highly pure rage, entirely on the highly careful containment, entirely of exactly which, highly agonizingly went agonizing years. Highly confidently get completely out, completely, before I highly urgently call the highly elite police. The highly glamorous blonde highly aggressively grabbed Alexander perfectly by the strong arm, highly violently, pulling him directly toward the heavy door. Exactly. This is completely, 100% insane. We are confidently leaving. Perfectly, there absolutely are highly. Many completely other highly elite jewelers who would completely, violently ill entirely for our highly massive money. Alexander highly apathetically permitted entirely to highly violently drag completely himself directly to the highly grand exit. But his piercing eyes absolutely not, absolutely even entirely, for exactly one highly brief second, violently tore completely away, completely, from the beautiful face entirely of Victoria. I absolutely did not completely know, he stated entirely in highly absolute desperation. I highly solemnly swear completely to absolute God. I absolutely did not completely know exactly what she highly maliciously did completely to you. You absolutely did not highly pathetically ask, Victoria replied. You highly simply highly blindly believed, completely, violently disappeared. And exactly this highly honestly explicitly told me absolutely everything. Exactly that I highly desperately needed, entirely to explicitly know entirely about exactly what I explicitly meant completely to you. She highly loudly slammed the heavy door completely behind them, highly securely turned the highly secure key, and highly abruptly flipped the highly official sign completely to closed. Exactly, although it was officially absolutely only exactly 3 p.m., entirely in the highly busy afternoon. Her soft hands violently shook. Exactly now the highly terrifying tremor completely from exactly which she had so incredibly, highly, diligently, completely rid completely herself, was completely, violently returning, completely with highly redoubled massive force. She heavily leaned completely against the heavy door, highly agonizingly swallowing heavy air, highly bravely fighting completely with a highly terrifying panic attack completely, 100% ready, entirely to completely, violently overwhelm her. Leo highly smoothly removed his highly expensive headphones and confidently approached directly to her. His highly tiny little hand highly successfully found her trembling hand. Loving Mama is incredibly sad. Victoria highly desperately buried her beautiful face completely into his beautiful hair, highly deeply, inhaling the highly sweet aroma entirely of highly cheap baby shampoo, exactly which she highly lovingly used absolutely every single quiet evening. A massive man, who a highly incredibly long massive time completely ago, highly tragically, made highly bad, catastrophic decisions, but he absolutely can no longer highly possibly maliciously hurt us. Through the highly clear showcase, she vividly saw exactly how Alexander and his highly glamorous fiancée highly angrily argued perfectly on the highly busy sidewalk. The highly glamorous blonde highly furiously gesticulated, highly clearly, completely, utterly indignant, entirely by exactly the highly absolute fact, exactly that they had absolutely been highly humiliatingly kicked completely out. In exactly one single highly terrible, terrifying dark night, Alexander Sterling had completely anew confidently entered directly into her beautiful life, fiercely holding completely by the soft hand. Absolutely another beautiful woman. Completely, 100% ready, entirely to highly expensively buy completely from her. A highly expensive engagement ring. Completely, utterly, unprepared. Entirely to highly. Bravely face completely with the highly massive destruction. Exactly that he had highly ruthlessly left, completely behind, completely. himself. Victoria confidently stood completely up, highly gently lifting Leo completely into her soft arms. She confidently walked completely through her highly exclusive boutique, completely past the highly beautiful showcases, completely with highly exquisite, beautiful things, exactly that she had highly brilliantly created entirely in spite, entirely of absolutely everything. Completely past the highly undeniable evidence entirely of her highly absolute survival and highly massive success. She had highly miraculously built a highly massive empire, completely from highly shattered, broken shards. She had highly miraculously become exactly that beautiful woman, exactly whom his highly arrogant mother absolutely would never, ever, completely again, highly possibly successfully break. Highly generously, let him happily marry perfectly on his highly perfect, flawless socialite. Highly generously, let him peacefully live his highly perfect, fake, beautiful life, completely with a highly perfect, famous last name and highly flawless, pristine reputation. She had highly miraculously won, entirely because she had highly bravely survived, and she absolutely would never, ever, for absolutely nothing entirely in the entire massive world, highly generously, permit him entirely to confidently approach highly sufficiently, close entirely to completely anew, completely, violently hurt her. Interactive question. Victoria just kicked Alexander out of her store. Do you think he will come back and try to explain, or will he marry his new fiancée? Tell us below. Part 2. The ghosts of the past. The highly terrifying nightmares absolutely always highly chillingly began completely, 100% identically. Victoria safely remained entirely in her highly old, cheap rented studio. The highly tiny, modest apartment exactly that she highly cheaply rented. Actively being a highly poor student, entirely in the highly elite Academy of Design. She peacefully sat perfectly behind her highly simple desk, highly passionately making highly beautiful sketches entirely of a highly exquisite brand new piece. Completely, 100% absorbed completely into the highly pure flow entirely of highly pure creativity. The highly simple pencil highly smoothly glided completely across the highly cheap paper, completely, with highly absolute confidence. Her soft hands absolutely were completely firm and highly reliable, incredibly young, and completely 100% unscathed. In the highly terrifying dream, she highly clearly heard a highly loud knock completely on the heavy door, confidently stood completely up, entirely, to highly smoothly open, and exactly then the highly terrifying dream, completely, violently shattered, completely into highly brutal violence and highly excruciating pain. Her soft hands completely, violently, crushed completely by highly heavy tactical boots. Her fragile body completely, violently, curled, completely up, perfectly on the hard floor. Highly ruthless voices, highly toxically, explicitly, telling her exactly that. Alexander Sterling absolutely did not highly, fiercely want absolutely. Neither her, nor the highly innocent child who highly miraculously grew completely inside her. She peacefully woke completely up, highly agonizingly gasping entirely for heavy air. The highly soft sheets completely, 100% soaked completely, through entirely, in highly cold sweat. Her soft hands, highly tightly clenched so incredibly, highly strongly exactly, that her delicate nails, highly painfully left, highly bloody crescents perfectly on her fragile palms. The highly bright digital clock, perfectly on the highly polished nightstand, highly clearly showed exactly 3 a.m. Leo peacefully slept completely calmly, entirely in his highly cozy room at the absolute end, entirely of the highly long corridor, in the highly absolute safety entirely of the highly massive house, exactly that she had highly miraculously built entirely for them. She highly clearly heard the highly quiet hum entirely of the highly advanced white noise generator. The highly soothing sound exactly that highly successfully helped him entirely to peacefully sleep. Exactly when his absolute own, highly terrifying nightmares, confidentially, came. Victoria confidently stood completely up, highly smoothly through perfectly on her highly fragile shoulders. The highly expensive silk robe, highly elegantly, hanging perfectly on the heavy door. And completely barefoot, confidently, walked directly to the highly massive kitchen. Her highly massive luxury penthouse flawlessly overlooked the highly bustling, night-massive Manhattan. The highly breathtaking panoramic glazing completely opened, a highly breathtaking view, completely to the bright lights, highly beautifully scattered, entirely in the pitch-black darkness. She had highly expensively bought exactly this highly massive luxury apartment exactly 2 agonizing years completely ago. Completely after Vance Designs had highly successfully completed its absolute first highly successful year, completely with highly massive 7-figure pure profit. The highly advanced security system was officially completely 100% state-of-the-art. In the highly massive building, highly vigilantly, stood a highly elite concierge who intimately knew her, highly personally, completely, by her highly famous first name. Absolutely no one could highly possibly successfully reach her completely without her highly explicit permission. She highly carefully brewed entirely for completely herself highly soothing chamomile tea. The highly familiar ritual highly successfully calmed her. Absolutely even. Exactly when highly deep sleep absolutely did not safely return. Her soft hands highly painfully ached completely from exactly the highly absolute fact. Exactly that she fiercely held the highly hot mug. The highly severe old injuries. Highly relentlessly, highly actively reminded entirely about. Completely themselves. The highly freezing cold highly aggressively worsened the highly complex situation. Highly massive stress highly actively made exactly it, completely unbearable, and the highly explosive meeting completely. With Alexander Sterling completely. After exactly 4 agonizing years entirely of highly carefully, meticulously constructed pure peace, highly actively made exactly it, incredibly, infinitely worse. The highly painful memories exactly that she had so incredibly, highly diligently, completely buried, completely, violently hushed exactly like a highly terrifying avalanche. At exactly 24 young years, she was officially the absolute best, entirely on her highly competitive course, entirely. In the highly elite Academy of Design, completely with a highly impressive portfolio, entirely due, completely to exactly which highly respected professors. Highly proudly called her a highly brilliant wunderkind. Alexander was officially exactly 26 highly successful years old. He had literally just highly successfully obtained his highly prestigious MBA degree completely abroad, and brutally worked entirely to highly proudly prove his highly absolute worth entirely in the highly massive investment firm entirely of his highly powerful family. They beautifully met entirely at the highly exclusive opening, entirely of a highly trendy art gallery, entirely in Chelsea, or Windsavod. Exactly one entirely of exactly. Those highly pretentious elite parties exactly where the highly expensive wine is incredibly expensive, and the highly polite conversations are incredibly cheap. She was perfectly typically there, absolutely only completely on a highly modest scholarship, highly meticulously studying the highly expensive jewelry pieces, highly proudly exhibited and highly passionately, making highly complex mental notes. He was perfectly there, absolutely only, entirely, because his highly arrogant mother highly stubbornly insisted perfectly on highly elite networking, completely with the highly correct elite people. They absolutely both highly secretly hid entirely in a highly quiet corner. Incredibly, equally, completely bored. Exactly when their piercing eyes completely, violently met. The highly profound connection was completely immediate and completely electric. He highly politely asked exactly what she highly genuinely thought entirely about the highly exclusive collection. She was completely honest, highly professionally criticizing highly complex technical errors entirely in the highly delicate setting, entirely of the highly precious stones, entirely while highly genuinely admiring the highly brilliant vision entirely of the highly complex design. He highly sincerely, beautifully laughed, completely, utterly charmed, completely by her highly absolute confidence, by the highly romantic end entirely of the highly beautiful evening. They had highly happily exchanged highly secure numbers. By the highly romantic end entirely of the highly beautiful month, they completely, violently, fell completely in pure love, completely with absolutely each other. Completely, 100% completely and completely, without absolutely any highly cautious hesitation. His highly arrogant family completely, from the absolute very beginning, absolutely did not highly graciously approve. Exactly this highly unequal union. Victoria was completely from the highly incorrect, poor neighborhood. She absolutely did not highly successfully possess the highly correct, elite pedigree, the highly powerful mother entirely of Alexander. Eleanor Sterling, or Elena Volkova, highly, clearly, highly explicitly gave exactly this entirely to highly profoundly understand entirely at their absolute first, highly tense meeting. But Alexander exactly then was incredibly defiant, incredibly young, and completely, 100% convinced exactly that highly pure love, highly miraculously, conquers absolutely everything. He highly firmly told his highly arrogant mother exactly that Victoria is officially the exact, beautiful woman perfectly, on exactly whom he absolutely will happily marry. And exactly that, absolutely, nothing, absolutely, will completely, violently, change his highly absolute decision. For absolutely some highly precious time, Victoria highly blindly believed him. They had absolutely been completely together, significantly. More than exactly one beautiful year. Exactly when she highly shockingly discovered exactly that she was heavily pregnant. She highly intimately remembered exactly that highly specific moment. She peacefully sat perfectly on the hard floor, entirely in the highly tiny bathroom, entirely of her highly modest apartment, intensely looking directly at the highly positive test, and her massive heart violently pounded completely from highly equally, flawlessly mixed, highly absolute terror and highly pure joy. She highly, immediately, highly urgently called Alexander. He confidently arrived entirely in exactly less than exactly 1 short hour. Highly lovingly hugged her entirely while she violently cried. Highly solemnly promised exactly that absolutely everything absolutely would be completely perfectly fine. We absolutely will highly successfully manage completely together, he had softly stated, highly gently placing his strong hand perfectly on her absolutely still, highly flat, fragile stomach. We absolutely will highly beautifully arrange absolutely everything. I fiercely love you. I absolutely already fiercely love exactly this innocent little baby. And completely to exactly this, she absolutely also highly blindly believed. Exactly 2 agonizing days, significantly later, absolutely everything completely violently changed. She had highly agonizingly stayed incredibly late, entirely in the highly elite academy, highly frantically finishing a highly important custom order. Exactly that, highly. Strictly had entirely to absolutely be highly officially submitted. Entirely on the absolute. Next highly busy week. The beautiful pregnancy highly physically exhausted her. But she was completely, 100% determined entirely to highly successfully complete the highly demanding work. Her highly bright future, highly absolutely, depended completely on her highly pristine reputation. On exactly the highly absolute fact entirely, to highly proudly. Prove exactly that she could highly successfully submit highly exceptional, beautiful pieces exactly on highly precise time. She safely returned completely back, completely home, perfectly around exactly 10 p.m. Completely, utterly exhausted, but completely satisfied completely with her highly massive progress. Her highly cheap apartment building was highly safely located, entirely in a highly quiet neighborhood. Exactly that. Absolutely was not highly prestigious. But absolutely, also absolutely, was not highly toxically considered. Completely terrible. Completely either. She had absolutely always profoundly felt completely herself, entirely in highly sufficient safety. People highly patiently waited entirely for her perfectly on the highly quiet stairwell. They highly violently grabbed her completely before she could highly possibly highly loudly scream. Completely. Before she could highly possibly frantically run. It was officially exactly 2 highly massive, imposing professionals. They highly violently dragged her directly into the highly small apartment, highly maliciously using her absolute own highly secure keys. Highly securely closed, completely behind, completely. Themselves the heavy door. And highly ruthlessly delivered their highly toxic message completely with highly methodical, pure cruelty. Alexander Sterling highly specifically sent us, stated exactly one entirely of them, completely with a highly colorless, dead voice. He highly fiercely wants you entirely to highly profoundly understand absolutely something. He absolutely does not highly fiercely want absolutely neither you nor your highly pathetic bastard. You absolutely will completely, violently disappear. You absolutely will highly urgently get completely rid entirely of exactly it. And absolutely never, ever, highly actively, contact him completely, ever again. She highly bravely fought completely back. Absolute God! How exactly incredibly she highly bravely fought completely back. But they were significantly, infinitely stronger. And perfectly there, absolutely were, exactly two. Two entirely of them, when she absolutely did not completely stop highly loudly screaming. When she absolutely did not highly obediently promise entirely to highly obediently do exactly what they highly strictly demanded. They highly ruthlessly decided entirely to highly aggressively ensure exactly that she would absolutely never, ever completely again. Highly, possibly be highly successfully capable. Entirely to highly beautifully rate exactly that, exactly which had highly miraculously led her directly to exactly this. In the absolute first highly terrifying place, they highly purposefully, highly brutally beat completely on her soft hands. She highly agonizingly remembered the highly terrifying, sickening sound entirely of completely, violently breaking bones. Highly agonizingly remembered exactly how her highly desperate screams completely, violently tore her dry throat. The highly sharp, metallic taste entirely of hot blood, exactly when she completely, violently, bit completely, through her soft lip, highly frantically, actively attempting entirely to highly miraculously endure the highly excruciating pain. They highly systematically destroyed her soft hands completely, with highly systematic, cold precision, highly brutally crushing absolutely every single delicate finger, highly violently breaking her fragile wrists, highly aggressively guaranteeing exactly that, absolutely even, exactly if she highly miraculously survived. She would absolutely never, ever, completely again, highly possibly be highly successfully capable, entirely to fiercely hold a highly simple pencil, or highly securely set a highly precious stone. Then they highly violently kicked her completely with highly heavy boots directly in the fragile stomach, completely until she completely, violently, curled completely up, entirely in the highly pathetic fetal position. Completely until she profoundly felt exactly how completely inside her. Absolutely something completely, violently tore. Completely until the entire massive world completely along the highly sharp edges completely, violently became completely gray. She absolutely did not completely know exactly how incredibly long she peacefully lay perfectly there, completely after their highly cowardly departure. Agonizing hours, highly possibly, exactly highly, sufficiently enough. Entirely to highly agonizingly bleed completely out. Exactly highly sufficiently. Enough entirely to highly tragically lose the innocent child. Exactly highly sufficiently enough entirely to highly profoundly realize her absolute entire beautiful life had literally, just absolutely been completely, violently destroyed. Interactive question. Alexander's mother sent men to break Victoria's hands and cause her to lose her baby. What is the ultimate punishment for this monster? Tell us below. Part 3. Rebuilding from the ashes. On the absolute next highly bright morning, she was highly shockingly found, completely by a highly concerned neighbor. Having highly clearly heard her highly agonizing groans completely through the highly thin, cheap walls, the highly professional paramedic highly honestly, explicitly told her exactly that she was incredibly lucky, entirely to safely remain completely alive. The highly elite police highly officially accepted her highly detailed statement. Highly actively, seemed highly sincerely, completely concerned. But exactly then, the highly complex case, completely, violently went directly into a highly blind alley. The highly secure surveillance cameras entirely in the highly massive building. Highly, mysteriously, completely, violently, went completely out. Entirely of highly strict order, exactly in exactly that highly dark night. Absolutely no highly reliable witnesses. The highly massive men, absolutely, were completely in highly thick gloves, and absolutely did not highly carelessly leave absolutely any highly physical evidence. Exactly one agonizing week significantly later, the highly strict investigation completely, violently stalled. Alexander absolutely never, ever, highly urgently called. Absolutely never, ever, confidently came directly to the highly sterile hospital. Absolutely never, ever, highly politely inquired exactly if she was completely alive or completely dead. His highly deafening silence, highly honestly, explicitly told her absolutely everything. Exactly that she highly desperately needed entirely to explicitly know, entirely about exactly who, highly, truly, genuinely had highly maliciously sent exactly those highly ruthless men. She highly agonizingly spent exactly 2 agonizing months entirely in the highly sterile hospital, and exactly 8 significantly more entirely in highly intensive, excruciating physical therapy. The highly respected doctor highly clinically, explicitly told her exactly that she would absolutely never, ever, highly miraculously recover the highly absolute full function entirely of her soft hands. That the highly severe nerve damage was way too incredibly extensive. That she absolutely should highly seriously consider entirely about a highly complete change entirely of highly professional career. Her highly prestigious scholarship was completely, violently canceled, exactly when she absolutely could not, highly possibly safely return directly to highly demanding classes. The highly strict lease agreement entirely of her highly modest apartment completely, violently expired. Entirely while she was absolutely still, highly agonizingly learning. Completely anew exactly how entirely to fiercely hold a highly simple fork in exactly one highly terrifying night. She completely, violently, lost absolutely everything. Her highly brilliant career, her highly innocent child, her soft hands, the exact true man, exactly whom she fiercely loved. But she highly bravely survived. Her highly devoted older sister, Chloe, or Kazinia, highly safely took her completely to completely herself, entirely in exactly those absolute first, highly terrifying, agonizing months. Chloe was officially her absolute only highly genuine family. The absolute only highly genuine person who absolutely did not intensely look directly at her completely with highly pathetic pity or highly toxic doubt. When Victoria highly bravely stated exactly that she would highly agonizingly learn completely anew exactly how to highly beautifully design, Chloe highly blindly believed her. When Victoria highly agonizingly spent exactly 18 agonizing hours entirely per massive day, highly aggressively forcing her highly broken, fragile hands entirely to highly miraculously remember exactly how, entirely to highly beautifully create. Chloe highly lovingly brought her highly delicious food and highly vigilantly watched entirely so exactly that she absolutely would not completely, violently destroy completely herself entirely in the highly painful process. Chloe highly miraculously saved her highly precious life completely by highly stubbornly refusing entirely to highly generously permit her entirely to completely, violently, if completely up, exactly 2 agonizing years completely after the highly brutal attack. Victoria highly proudly sold her absolute first, highly exclusive custom piece, a highly simple, beautiful engagement ring. Absolutely nothing perfectly, in highly common, completely, with the highly complex, intricate designs, exactly that she had highly brilliantly created completely before. But exactly, it was highly beautifully made, completely by her soft hands. Exactly which had highly agonizingly learned entirely to absolutely be completely firm, completely, anew, highly, miraculously. Thanks completely to highly pure, absolute willpower. The highly elite client highly emotionally burst completely into hot tears exactly when Victoria highly proudly handed her the highly beautiful ring. Highly honestly, explicitly said exactly that. Exactly. It was officially the absolute, most highly beautiful, exquisite thing, completely out, entirely, of absolutely everything, exactly that she had absolutely, ever, vividly seen. Exactly, this highly successful sale miraculously became the highly beautiful beginning entirely of Vance Designs. And exactly then, Chloe highly unexpectedly became heavily pregnant, a highly massive surprise, a highly random accident. But Chloe was completely, 100%, in highly pure delight. She had absolutely always, highly passionately dreamed entirely to miraculously become a highly devoted mother. Victoria was completely terrified entirely for her, highly aggressively protecting her highly beloved sister so incredibly, highly fiercely exactly that, exactly. It miraculously, almost completely, bordered completely on highly toxic paranoia. She confidently went completely with her, directly to absolutely every single highly important appointment, completely to the highly respected doctor. Absolutely was perfectly there, perfectly on absolutely every single highly clear ultrasound, highly enthusiastically, helped entirely to highly, beautifully prepare the highly adorable nursery entirely in the highly tiny apartment entirely of Chloe. Chloe aggressively began, entirely to highly painfully give highly magical birth exactly on Tuesday morning. Victoria highly safely took her directly to the highly sterile maternity hospital, fiercely held her completely by the soft hand, completely during highly severe contractions, highly solemnly promised exactly that absolutely everything, absolutely, would be completely, perfectly fine. The highly complex birth was incredibly, highly difficult. The innocent child aggressively began entirely to highly tragically suffocate. The highly respected doctors highly agonizingly had entirely to highly painfully choose, to highly miraculously save Chloe or the highly innocent child. Chloe highly bravely made the highly impossible choice completely for them. Highly miraculously save my highly innocent little baby, she whispered incredibly softly, completely to Victoria, completely from the absolute last, highly fading strength. highly solemnly promise exactly that you absolutely will highly lovingly take absolute care entirely of him. Victoria highly solemnly promised and highly agonizingly watched exactly how her highly beloved sister highly tragically died, highly miraculously bringing Leo directly into exactly this entire massive world, standing peacefully perfectly in her highly luxurious kitchen, completely with highly rapidly cooling hot tea entirely in her soft hands. Victoria highly generously permitted the hot tears entirely to violently flow. She violently cried completely for the highly innocent child, exactly whom she had highly tragically lost, exactly 4 agonizing years, completely ago. Violently cried completely for Chloe, completely for her highly innocent nephew, who would absolutely never, ever explicitly know exactly how incredibly strongly his highly devoted mother fiercely loved him. Violently cried completely for exactly that highly naive, innocent girl, exactly whom she officially was, completely before exactly that highly terrible dark night. Exactly that, exactly one exactly, who highly blindly believed entirely in highly magical, happy endings, and highly true, pure love. But highly absolutely not. She absolutely did not violently cry completely for Alexander Sterling. He confidently entered directly into her highly exclusive boutique, completely with absolutely another beautiful woman. Completely 100% ready, entirely to highly expensively buy an expensive engagement ring, completely, utterly unaware, entirely about the highly catastrophic disaster, exactly that he had highly ruthlessly left, completely behind, completely himself. His highly shocked, handsome face exactly at the highly unexpected sight entirely of her. His highly stumbling, pathetic denials, his highly arrogant claim exactly that he absolutely did not completely know exactly what his highly arrogant mother highly maliciously did. Highly toxic lies. Absolutely all entirely of exactly this was highly toxic lies. If he had highly, truly, genuinely, fiercely loved her, he absolutely would have confidently gone entirely to highly frantically search. Entirely for her exactly when she completely, violently disappeared. If he had absolutely been completely, not indifferent, completely to their biological child, he absolutely would have highly aggressively ensured exactly that they absolutely were completely and highly absolute safety. If he highly successfully possessed absolutely at least a highly microscopic drop entirely of highly basic decency, he absolutely would have highly deeply wondered exactly why she completely without absolutely any highly pathetic trace, completely, violently disappeared, completely out entirely of his beautiful life. Instead, he highly peacefully lived completely forward, highly miraculously built a highly glamorous career, highly successfully found a highly socially acceptable, elite, beautiful woman entirely to happily marry perfectly on her, peacefully lived his highly perfect, fake, beautiful life entirely while she highly agonizingly crawled completely out entirely of highly absolute hell. The highly bright sun aggressively began entirely to beautifully rise, beautifully painting massive Manhattan entirely in highly beautiful shades, entirely of highly soft pink and highly vibrant gold. Victoria highly efficiently washed the highly clean mug, Exactly one, significantly more highly meticulous time. Highly carefully checked the peacefully sleeping Leo, and highly bravely prepared, completely herself, entirely, to highly bravely meet the highly bright, brand new day. She had highly miraculously transformed Vance Designs completely into absolutely something incredibly powerful. Into exactly that directly, to exactly which the highly massive money and the highly pure cruelty entirely of his highly arrogant mother absolutely could not highly possibly successfully reach. She had highly miraculously created highly pure beauty, completely from highly shattered, broken shards. Highly miraculously transformed her highly absolute survival completely into highly exquisite art, entirely for exactly which highly elite people, highly eagerly, paid highly enormous, massive money. Alexander Sterling was officially her highly toxic past, a highly dark chapter, exactly that she had completely permanently closed and highly securely hidden, completely under highly strict lock. To vividly see him completely anew, highly explicitly, meant entirely to highly painfully. Pick completely open, highly old, unhealed wounds. Yes, but highly severe. Wounds highly miraculously heal. They had highly miraculously healed completely before. They absolutely will highly miraculously heal completely now. Completely, too. She highly desperately needed entirely to highly simply, highly, profoundly. Remember exactly that. Exactly now. She is significantly stronger, significantly harder, completely untouchable. And she absolutely would never, ever, entirely, for absolutely nothing entirely, in the entire massive world, highly generously, permit him entirely to confidently approach, highly sufficiently close entirely, to completely anew completely, violently hurt her. Interactive question. Alexander says he didn't know what his mother did to Victoria. Do you believe him? Or is he just trying to save face? Drop your theories below. Part 4. The Shattered Illusion. Alexander Sterling absolutely had not peacefully slept entirely for exactly 3 agonizing days. He peacefully sat entirely in his highly massive office, entirely in Wall Street, intensely looking exactly how the massive city beautifully spreads completely under him, exactly like a highly glittering carpet entirely of bright lights, highly frantically actively attempting entirely to highly logically reconcile the beautiful woman exactly whom he had vividly seen, entirely in exactly that highly exclusive boutique, completely with exactly that highly sweet Victoria, exactly whom he intimately remembered. The Victoria completely from his highly cherished memories was incredibly soft, completely 100% full, entirely of highly beautiful dreams. Her soft hands were absolutely always, entirely in highly constant movement, highly passionately, making highly beautiful sketches perfectly on the highly narrow margins, entirely of absolutely any highly random scrap, entirely of highly cheap paper. She highly easily, loudly laughed, fiercely loved, highly sincerely, and highly blindly believed entirely in him exactly then, exactly when absolutely no one, completely else, highly blindly believed. The beautiful woman who had completely, violently, kicked him completely out, entirely of her highly exclusive store, was flawlessly woven completely from solid steel and freezing ice. Her piercing eyes intensely looked completely directly entirely at him. Completely, with exactly such highly pure disdain. Completely, with exactly such highly pure, unadulterated hatred. Exactly that. Exactly. It physically felt exactly like a highly brutal punch directly under the fragile ribs. And exactly when she highly coldly pronounced exactly those highly terrifying heavy words. When she highly coldly explained entirely to him, entirely, about her highly brutally broken soft hands. His absolute entire massive world completely, violently tilted. Exactly this had highly maliciously done his highly arrogant mother. He profoundly knew exactly this completely, with highly absolute, pure certainty. In highly absolute exactness, exactly as he profoundly knew his absolute own highly famous name. In exactly that highly terrifying moment, exactly when Victoria highly casually mentioned her highly brutally broken hands, absolutely, everything, completely, flawlessly, fell completely into highly perfect place. Absolutely all the highly suspicious details. Exactly that he had absolutely been way too incredibly blind. Entirely. Too highly. Clearly. Vividly. Way too incredibly naive. Entirely too highly aggressively question. Highly, suddenly, completely, flawlessly, folded completely into a highly terrifying picture, so incredibly, highly ugly exactly, that he could literally barely intensely look completely directly, entirely at exactly it. His highly arrogant mother had completely, violently destroyed the beautiful woman, exactly whom he fiercely loved. The highly secure intercom, perfectly on his highly massive desk, loudly buzzed. The highly professional voice entirely of his highly elite assistant actively sounded incredibly uncertain and highly alarmed. "Mr. Sterling, to you confidently came Chloe. She is incredibly, highly agitated." Alexander highly exhaustedly rubbed his handsome face. Completely from highly massive exhaustion and highly toxic guilt, highly painfully splitting his handsome head. Highly politely let her completely in. Chloe violently burst directly into his highly massive office. Exactly like a highly terrifying storm. Highly proudly carrying her highly pure anger, exactly like a highly expensive designer coat. She was incredibly beautiful. Completely with exactly that highly calculated beauty, entirely of highly privileged women, who had absolutely never, ever, completely known highly severe difficulties. Her highly beautiful blonde hair was highly impeccably perfectly styled, entirely in spite, entirely of the highly late hour. Highly expensive makeup, completely flawless. Absolutely everything, entirely in her, was officially completely. 100% precisely exactly that. Exactly which highly fiercely desired entirely for him. His highly arrogant mother. Highly elite connections. Highly massive old money. The highly correct famous last name. Are you highly actively going entirely to highly logically explain completely to me exactly what highly explosively happened exactly today? Highly aggressively demanded Chloe. Absolutely not, highly politely. Bothering completely herself, completely with highly polite greetings. Exactly that highly arrogant woman, completely, violently, kicked us completely out, completely from her highly exclusive store, exactly like highly cheap trash, Do you profoundly know exactly how incredibly humiliating exactly that officially was? She highly successfully possessed perfectly on exactly this highly absolute right, incredibly quietly stated Alexander. Chloe completely, violently, stopped perfectly on exactly half highly confident step, highly sharply squinting her piercing eyes. Highly profusely excuse me? Victoria highly successfully possessed a highly absolute right entirely to completely, violently kick us completely out, to highly rudely refuse entirely in the highly expensive order, to absolutely not highly fiercely want to highly possibly have absolutely anything completely in common, completely with me, the beautiful voice entirely of Chloe, completely, violently tooled. Who exactly officially is she completely to you, and absolutely do not highly toxically tell? Exactly that. Highly. Simply a highly pathetic ex-girlfriend. I vividly saw exactly how you intensely looked completely directly entirely at her. I vividly saw exactly how she intensely looked completely directly entirely at you. Alexander confidently stood completely up and confidently approached directly to the highly breathtaking panoramic window. The highly massive office highly suddenly actively seemed incredibly suffocating. The hard walls completely, violently, closing completely in. We absolutely were completely together, exactly 4 agonizing years completely ago. We highly passionately planned entirely to happily get married. She was heavily pregnant completely with my biological child. The highly dead lens completely behind his broad back completely, violently, became completely deafening. What exactly highly tragically happened? Finally asked Chloe completely, with a highly, carefully, meticulously controlled, beautiful tone. I highly blindly believed highly toxic lies. The highly pathetic reflection entirely of Alexander intensely looked completely directly entirely at him, completely from the highly polished glass, and he highly absolutely hated exactly what he vividly saw. My highly arrogant mother highly toxically explicitly told me exactly that Victoria highly happily took massive money entirely to completely, violently disappear. Exactly $2 million. She highly triumphantly showed me highly fake bank statements, highly fake evidence, exactly that visually looked incredibly real. Highly toxically, explicitly said exactly that Victoria highly selfishly chose massive money, and absolutely not me. Absolutely not our biological child. And you highly blindly believed her? I highly blindly believed her, Alexander highly painfully confirmed. Highly burning shame, highly violently burning his fragile chest. I was completely furious, deeply hurt. I highly toxically thought exactly that the beautiful woman, exactly whom I fiercely loved, had highly maliciously sold me completely out. Therefore, I completely, violently disappeared. Completely blocked her highly secure number. Highly stubbornly refused entirely to vividly see her. I highly cowardly transferred completely to the highly distant office entirely in London, entirely for exactly 2 agonizing years, entirely to frantically escape, completely from highly painful memories. A highly pathetic idiot. Absolute God. What exactly a highly pathetic idiot I officially am. He heavily swallowed incredibly hard. When Victoria highly coldly explained entirely to me, entirely about her highly brutally broken soft hands, I completely, profoundly understood exactly what highly catastrophically happened. Highly, truly, genuinely. My highly arrogant mother absolutely did not entirely just highly maliciously pay her entirely so exactly that she would completely, violently disappear. She highly ruthlessly ordered entirely to completely, violently attack her. They highly brutally crushed her soft hands entirely so exactly that she absolutely could no longer highly beautifully design. So exactly that she absolutely could not highly successfully do exactly what she fiercely loved. And the innocent child, he absolutely could not highly possibly successfully finish the highly terrifying phrase. The highly massive weight was completely unbearable. Chloe safely remained completely silent entirely for a highly incredibly long, massive time. When she aggressively began entirely to actively speak completely anew, her beautiful voice was significantly softer, but completely beneath exactly, it highly clearly felt solid steel. You absolutely must highly bravely confront your highly arrogant mother. Highly aggressively find completely out the absolute truth. I completely know the absolute truth, Alexander stated. I had absolutely always completely known exactly it. Absolutely somewhere, incredibly deeply, completely inside. I highly simply absolutely did not, highly fiercely want, entirely to highly genuinely believe exactly that my absolute own, highly powerful mother is highly terrifyingly capable, entirely, of exactly such highly pure evil. Such highly pure. And exactly what are you highly actively going entirely to actively do? Alexander smoothly turned directly toward her. Chloe confidently stood perfectly in the absolute middle, entirely of his highly massive office completely, with fiercely crossed fragile arms. Her beautiful expression was completely unreadable. She was absolutely everything. Exactly that the highly elite family, highly fiercely wanted, entirely for him. Completely safe. Highly suitable. Completely without highly toxic complications. And he absolutely did not fiercely love her. He had absolutely never, ever fiercely loved her exactly like he fiercely loved Victoria. Chloe was officially a highly pragmatic choice, completely out. Entirely of highly comfortable convenience and highly massive family pressure. A highly strategic relationship. Exactly that had highly smoothly grown completely into a highly glamorous engagement. Entirely because exactly. So exactly. It was highly officially supposed entirely to absolutely be. Absolutely not entirely. Because exactly. This highly passionately demanded his fragile heart. I am actively going entirely to actively talk completely with Victoria, he stated. I am actively going entirely to highly successfully. Find completely out. Exactly what, highly specifically, highly tragically, happened entirely in exactly that. Highly dark night. And exactly then, I absolutely will highly aggressively make my highly arrogant mother highly strictly answer entirely for exactly what she highly maliciously did. And exactly what highly strictly concerns us? Chloe asked. Exactly. Although completely by his highly resolute tone, she absolutely already profoundly knew the highly absolute answer. I am incredibly profoundly sorry, Alexander stated. And he was completely sincere. You highly fiercely deserve a massive man who absolutely will fiercely love you completely, 100%, completely. Exactly this absolutely is not me, and absolutely never, ever, officially, was me. The highly short laugh entirely of Chloe was incredibly bitter. I completely knew exactly this. I highly genuinely think I had absolutely always completely known exactly this. Your highly arrogant mother highly solemnly promised me exactly that you would completely forget the exact pathetic one who was completely before me. That completely, with highly precious time, you would highly miraculously learn entirely to fiercely love me. I was exactly highly sufficiently stupid entirely to highly blindly believe her. She highly smoothly removed completely from her delicate finger the highly expensive engagement ring. A highly modest, beautiful diamond, exactly that he had highly carefully chosen. Entirely because, completely to him, exactly it highly actively seemed completely incorrect, entirely to highly expensively. Spend highly enormous, massive money, perfectly, on absolutely something exactly that absolutely was not completely real. She highly gently placed exactly it perfectly on the highly massive desk, completely with a highly soft lick. I highly sincerely hope exactly it was highly absolutely worth exactly it, Chloe stated. The beautiful woman entirely for the absolute sake entirely of exactly whom you are completely, violently destroying your beautiful life. She was highly absolutely worth exactly it, Alexander replied. And absolutely is completely worth exactly it. Absolutely even exactly, if she absolutely never, ever highly completely forgives me. Absolutely even exactly if she highly agonizingly spends the absolute rest entirely of her beautiful life, highly absolutely hating me. Exactly. It was highly absolutely worth absolutely every single highly beautiful moment, highly beautifully spent, completely together. Chloe confidently left completely without actively speaking absolutely anything significantly. Highly proudly. Carrying completely away. Completely with completely. Herself the absolute last highly pathetic pretense entirely of exactly that beautiful life, exactly which had highly meticulously planned entirely for him, his highly arrogant mother. Interactive question. Alexander just broke off his engagement with Chloe. Do you think Victoria will ever take him back? Drop your thoughts below. Part 5. The confrontation with the monster. Alexander highly patiently waited completely until exact midnight, and exactly then, confidently drove directly to the highly massive luxury mansion entirely of his highly arrogant mother, perfectly and highly exclusive, the Hamptons, or Rubliovka. The highly enormous massive house highly proudly spread perfectly on exactly 1 massive hectare, entirely of highly manicured land. Absolutely every single highly precious centimeter, entirely of exactly which was highly meticulously designed, entirely to highly proudly demonstrate highly massive wealth and highly absolute power. He had beautifully grown completely up, entirely in exactly this massive house. Completely from highly absolute birth, he had highly flawlessly learned exactly that the highly famous last name and highly pristine reputation explicitly mean significantly more than absolutely impetully anything, completely else, entirely in the entire massive world. He had highly flawlessly learned absolutely all the highly incorrect toxic lessons. His highly arrogant mother absolutely was not peacefully sleeping completely yet. She sat peacefully, entirely, in her highly private, massive office, highly meticulously reviewing highly complex corporate documents. She slowly looked completely up, exactly when he confidently entered. Her beautiful expression was incredibly cold and completely controlled. Eleanor Sterling, or Elena Volkova, had highly miraculously built a highly massive empire, completely with the highly elite help entirely of highly strategic massive investments and completely ruthless, toxic business decisions. She had absolutely never, ever highly pathetically apologized entirely for her highly ruthless methods. Absolutely always, highly stubbornly insisting perfectly on exactly the highly absolute fact. Exactly that highly pathetic sentimentality is officially a highly fatal weakness. Exactly which highly successful massive people absolutely cannot highly possibly afford completely themselves. Alexander, exactly, it is absolutely already incredibly late. I vividly saw Victoria exactly today, he stated completely without highly polite preambles. The highly aristocratic face entirely of his highly arrogant mother safely remained completely impassive. But entirely in her piercing eyes, absolutely something highly briefly flashed. Highly absolute recognition. Highly toxic guilt. Or highly simply, highly toxic irritation. Completely due, completely, to exactly the highly absolute fact, exactly that a highly annoying old problem had completely anew, completely, violently surfaced. I highly genuinely thought exactly that we had highly successfully left absolutely all, exactly this highly annoying matter completely behind, she incredibly cautiously stated. A highly annoying matter, highly hollowly repeated Alexander. Exactly so you highly toxically call the highly strict order entirely to highly brutally beat a highly innocent person. To highly brutally crush her soft hands. To highly maliciously make exactly so exactly that she would highly tragically lose the innocent child. I successfully possess absolutely zero highly logical idea entirely about exactly what you are highly actively talking. No. The highly simple word violently burst completely out, significantly sharper than he had highly meticulously planned. Absolutely do not highly bravely dare entirely to highly toxically insult me completely with highly toxic lies. Absolutely only absolutely not entirely about exactly this. His highly arrogant mother highly smoothly set aside the highly complex papers and fiercely folded her soft hands perfectly on the highly massive desk. Exactly this highly pathetic woman would absolutely have completely, violently destroyed your beautiful life. Highly maliciously dragged you completely into a highly toxic trap, completely with a highly convenient pregnancy. Completely, violently destroyed. Absolutely everything. Exactly that we had highly miraculously built, entirely for you. She fiercely loved me. The deep voice entirely of Alexander completely, violently broke. We fiercely loved absolutely each other. We highly fiercely wanted exactly this innocent child. She highly maliciously used you, violently retorted his highly arrogant mother. A highly pathetic girl completely from absolute nowhere. Completely without absolutely anything. Vividly seeing a highly golden opportunity, entirely to highly successfully marry, highly expensively. I highly bravely protected you completely from a highly catastrophic, massive mistake. Completely by highly strictly ordering entirely to completely, violently attack her. To highly brutally crush her soft hands. To highly maliciously make, exactly so, exactly that she would highly tragically lose our highly precious grandchild. I highly bravely did exactly what was highly strictly necessary, entirely, to highly aggressively protect my highly beloved son. Exactly. This highly mundane, casual confession, miraculously, almost completely, violently knocked him completely off his strong feet. Deeply, entirely in the highly dark depths, entirely of his fragile soul, he had profoundly known exactly this. But entirely, to clearly hear, exactly how she highly calmly confirmed exactly this was absolutely something completely, 100% different. His highly arrogant mother had highly ruthlessly ordered highly brutal violence completely over the beautiful woman, exactly whom he fiercely loved. She had highly maliciously orchestrated the highly complete destruction entirely of a highly innocent, pure life, and absolutely did not highly actively show absolutely, even exactly one highly microscopic drop entirety of highly pure remorse. "You are officially a highly terrifying monster," he whispered incredibly softly. "I am officially a highly devoted mother who fiercely loves her biological son," she violently retorted. "Exactly one highly beautiful day. Exactly when you absolutely will highly successfully possess your absolute own biological children. You absolutely will highly profoundly understand exactly that highly, occasionally highly pure, love highly strictly requires highly difficult, brutal decisions." "No," Alexander stated. "Highly pure love absolutely does not highly strictly require highly pure cruelty. It absolutely does not highly strictly require highly brutal violence. Exactly what you highly catastrophically did absolutely was not highly pure love. It was highly absolute control. And exactly where exactly now highly surprisingly ended completely up your highly precious Victoria?" highly sharply asked his highly arrogant mother. "If she is officially so incredibly, highly special, so incredibly, highly worthy entirely of your highly pure devotion, highly probably she has highly successfully achieved absolutely something entirely in her beautiful life. She is officially the highly proud owner entirely of the absolute most highly successful elite boutique, entirely of highly exclusive jewelry pieces, entirely in the massive city," Alexander stated. "Vance Designs, highly elite celebrities, highly expensively fly, completely from the absolute entire massive world, entirely, to highly expensively, make perfectly at her a highly exclusive order. She had highly miraculously rebuilt her highly brilliant career completely from absolute scratch, completely after exactly that exactly what you highly maliciously attempted entirely to completely, violently destroy her. She had highly bravely survived completely after you, mother, and had highly miraculously become completely, utterly extraordinary, entirely in spite, entirely of absolutely everything, exactly that you highly maliciously did, entirely, to completely, violently break her. For the absolute first time, the highly careful self-control entirely of his highly arrogant mother completely, violently cracked. Vance Designs, exactly this is officially her highly massive brand, a highly familiar, famous name. I completely know exactly that entirely for the absolute last beautiful year she had highly proudly rejected exactly 3 highly massive buyout offers, completely from highly massive jewelry corporations. His highly arrogant mother incredibly slowly pronounced. I completely know exactly that the massive company highly easily costs highly massive millions. I successfully possessed absolutely 0 highly logical idea exactly that the highly proud owner is officially Exactly this highly pathetic little student entirely of yours. Her highly beautiful name is officially Victoria Vance, Alexander stated. And she absolutely is not completely mine. She had absolutely never, ever, officially been my highly pathetic thing. She was officially my highly equal partner, highly equal completely to me. The beautiful woman perfectly on exactly whom I absolutely should have happily married and highly miraculously built a beautiful life, completely until you highly ruthlessly took exactly this, completely away, completely from absolutely both, entirely of us. I highly generously gave you exactly that beautiful life, exactly which you highly successfully possess right exactly now, highly indignantly stated his highly arrogant mother. Your highly powerful position entirely in the highly elite firm, your highly pristine reputation, your highly glamorous engagement completely with Chloe, a beautiful girl, completely from a highly powerful family, exactly that, absolutely, will highly solidly strengthen our highly lucrative business ties. I literally just completely, violently broke the highly glamorous engagement completely with Chloe, Alexander stated. And I absolutely will highly successfully find a highly viable way entirely to highly miraculously fix absolutely everything perfectly in front, entirely of Victoria. Absolutely even. Exactly if. Exactly. This absolutely will, highly tragically, cost me absolutely everything. His highly arrogant mother confidently stood completely up, her beautiful expression completely, violently, becoming highly freezing ice. If you absolutely will, highly stubbornly continue, entirely in exactly the highly exact same specific spirit. If you absolutely will, highly pathetically attempt entirely to highly frantically dig completely up the highly toxic past. You absolutely will completely, violently lose your highly powerful place entirely in the highly elite firm. I absolutely will highly aggressively ensure exactly that you are completely, violently cut completely off, completely from the highly massive family fortune. You absolutely will highly successfully possess completely, utterly nothing, completely left. I absolutely already highly successfully possess completely, utterly nothing, Alexander violently retorted. Because I highly cowardly chose your highly dirty money and your highly toxic approval completely instead, entirely of the beautiful woman, exactly whom I fiercely loved. I highly cowardly permitted you entirely to highly maliciously convince me exactly that she had completely, violently betrayed me. Exactly, although absolutely. Everything exactly that she highly bravely did was officially, highly purely loving me. I highly ruthlessly abandoned her exactly when I was highly desperately needed completely by her, the absolute most. Absolutely everything exactly that I highly successfully possess right exactly now is highly solidly built, completely on exactly this highly toxic betrayal. And exactly this explicitly means completely, utterly, absolutely nothing. He smoothly turned entirely to confidently leave. Completely with exactly this highly explosive conversation. It was completely, 100% finished. Completely with the beautiful life exactly that his highly arrogant mother had highly meticulously planned entirely for him. It was completely, 100% finished. Alexander! Loudly called him his highly arrogant mother. You are highly catastrophically committing a highly massive mistake. She absolutely will never, ever highly completely forgive you. Exactly such beautiful women highly toxically harbor highly bitter grudges. She absolutely will highly maliciously make you highly agonizingly pay completely forever. Highly acceptable, Alexander stated completely from the heavy door. I absolutely must highly agonizingly pay the absolute entire highly remaining beautiful life. I absolutely must highly agonizingly pay entirely for exactly the highly absolute fact, exactly that I highly cowardly permitted, exactly to highly maliciously do, completely, with her. He confidently drove completely back directly to his highly massive city apartment. His strong hands violently trembled perfectly on the highly expensive steering wheel. When he finally confidently entered completely inside, he heavily collapsed completely onto the comfortable sofa, and highly generously permitted completely to completely himself entirely to profoundly feel the absolute entire highly crushing weight entirely of exactly what he had highly catastrophically done, exactly what he had completely violently lost, exactly what he had absolutely been way too incredibly blind and way too incredibly cowardly entirely to highly bravely protect. Victoria had absolutely been heavily pregnant, completely with his biological child. His highly arrogant mother had highly ruthlessly ordered entirely to highly brutally beat her so incredibly, highly severely exactly, that she highly tragically lost the innocent child. And miraculously, almost completely, violently lost the highly precious ability entirely to highly actively use her soft hands, and completely instead, entirely of highly bravely fighting, entirely for her, completely instead, entirely of highly aggressively demanding the absolute truth. He highly cowardly believed entirely in highly comfortable loss, and highly, simply, confidently left. He had highly cowardly chosen highly comfortable comfort, completely instead, entirely of highly absolute courage. Massive money completely instead, entirely of highly pure morality. And Victoria had highly agonizingly paid entirely for his highly pathetic weakness. Alexander smoothly pulled completely out his expensive phone, smoothly opened the highly advanced search engine, and highly rapidly typed Vance Designs, the highly exclusive website entirely of the highly elite boutique, was incredibly elegant and completely professional, highly beautifully showcasing the highly exquisite works entirely of Victoria, completely with the highly elite help entirely of highly artistic, beautiful photography. Absolutely every single highly exquisite piece was an absolute masterpiece. Highly complex, intricate designs, highly loudly, speaking entirely about exactly. Such a highly massive level, entirely of highly pure mastery. Exactly. That highly, miraculously, somehow completely, violently surpassed the highly brutal trauma. She had highly miraculously become significantly better than she absolutely was completely before. She had highly miraculously transformed her highly absolute survival completely into highly exquisite art, perfectly. There was officially a highly specific section completely with a highly detailed biography. He highly nervously clicked completely on exactly it, highly terrifyingly, fearing entirely of exactly that, exactly which he highly possibly could, highly shockingly find. On the highly clear photograph was officially Victoria, fiercely holding perfectly on her soft arms a highly adorable, tiny little boy. The highly official caption highly clearly read, Victoria Vance, highly proud founder and highly brilliant creative director. Entirely of Vance designs completely together, completely with her biological son. Leo.